Episode 2, Solo in Seattle. Who left? Did you leave? Or did they leave? What does leaving even mean? At this point in our lives, I'm pretty sure we've all extended ourselves in a relationship, multiple relationships, situationships, committed relationships, marriage, divorce, any of those things, human connection. How does it feel when you're connected to somebody? When you first start talking to that one person that you are actually attracted to, physically, maybe emotionally, maybe spiritually. What about intellectually? How often does that happen? How often do you actually connect to somebody so deep that it touches your soul? Because I find that a lot of times when there's human connection, does it stop at physical? Does it go a little deeper? How do you figure out that you actually truly like someone? And when you figure out that you like someone, what does that even mean? Do you like the way that they look? Do you like the way that they talk? Is it their vibe? So let's peel back some layers here, right? When I was in my 20s, actually when I was 18, I moved to Baton Rouge, Louisiana. And when I tell you, my whole life was disrupted. I had never lived in a place that was so, in my opinion, backwards. And it was confusing for me because at that time, I had to figure out who I was. Because living there, it felt like there was a class system on a different undertone. And those who live in the South can understand where I'm going with that. And we'll just leave it at that. But it was in I think it might have been my freshman year of college. I was standing outside with a group of girlfriends, my sister Dawn, actually. And I remember this like it was yesterday. Across the parking lot is this Grecian god, 6'7", bald-headed dude. And I looked at my girl Dawn and I said, that's gonna be my husband. And I kid you not, he ended up being my husband all of my 20s. But was he though? You know, it's so questionable, right? Because living in your 20s and falling in love, true love, I will admit, it was so fun. You're young, you're learning about someone else, you're navigating life. Do you really have a care in the world at 20s? No. We know what it's about in our 20s. We know that it's not about building a life together. So, from 18 until 21, it was just the two of us, having fun, getting our education. And then, 9 months later, I'm 22 years old, and I welcome in a baby boy. So let's talk about connection. What happens when you introduce a child into your family system? In my case, I can admit this. I only had eyes for my son. I no longer saw my husband. I don't even think he saw himself. So insert a rift. And I know there's people out there that feel exactly what I'm saying. You divert your attention into these gender roles that society creates. A mother is supposed to care for their young. They're supposed to cook dinner, clean the house, be attentive, put out. All of these things. But what happens to her? she changes. Her body changes. Her life changes. Her hormones change. Her mood changes. And then she just kind of starts to slip into the background, disappear into life, disappear into routine, and she's no longer seen, only by the child. And this isn't true for everyone. Sometimes having children brings two people closer together, and they are a dynamic duo. They are a power couple. There are no gender roles. There are fathers who take a step up. I know many of them. I have many friends who are single fathers who took their children and raised them, and I love them for that. But that wasn't the case in my scenario. I stayed about a year after I had my son, and like anything, I peeped out the situation, and I realized this was not my life. I did love him. I still love him. He was my first love. However, I cannot allow somebody in my life that is not who I need them to be. And it's not about walking away. It's not about not building up your partner. It's about recognizing and choosing yourself. And through this podcast, you will see SoloInSeattle has a theme. And that theme is typically term limited, with someone, and choosing self. That has to be the most important message I give to you in this podcast, is choosing yourself. So that's my 20s. Fast forward into my 30s. I moved to Seattle. And for 6 months, I'm just navigating the east side, me and the kid, doing all the little fun things that you do when you first move to an area. And then I see my girlfriends dating. Man, what kind of dates are they going on? They look like they're having a blast. They're on this app. It's called Tinder. Now, guys, before you judge me, I would dare to say about a decade ago, Tinder, for all purposes, I feel like in my situation, was a dating app. Current day, it's a little different. I'm not on dating apps currently. However, I downloaded the dating app. And I swipe. I don't remember if you're supposed to swipe left or swipe right. But I swiped, and I went on a few dates. I said, let's go on a tour around the world, if you will. Seattle, if anything, offers transplants from different countries, different areas, different lifestyles. So I went on a date with a guy. He was Italian. No, actually, I believe he was Greek. We went to a Greek restaurant. He was weird. He lives in his mom's basement. He was a no. The other guy, I think he was maybe Latin. We went to a Mexican restaurant, hung out at the bar. He was a little too interesting. He was a no. At the time, I had a friend that I worked at the courthouse with, Daisha, and we did this really fun night of speed dating. And it was all Microsoft employees. It was a no. A big no. Although now, no, it'd still be a no. Those are not my bag. Anyways, and then we went bowling, and we met some guys there, and it was fun. Still a no. So I hop on an app, swipe, and I see somebody on the app. And I'm like, okay, we match. I ignored that person for 2 weeks because I'm like, I don't think so. Eventually, we had a whirlwind romance the first couple of years. And as I said in my last episode, I entered into graduate school. Life happened. We lasted about 9 years. And then it changed. We changed. We didn't grow together. We grew apart. Because again, the theme of this podcast episode is connection. So what happens when you lose that connection? What happens when you are in a committed long-term relationship and you become roommates? You become friends, best friends. Is that normal? It isn't. It's one of those things in hindsight. Is it 2020? Did we know what we were doing intentionally? I challenge you, if you are currently in a long-term relationship and you love that person to the core, but you are lonely, talk to them. Turn towards them. Don't turn away. Ask them questions. Why? When did you fall in love with me? When did you fall out of love with me? Are you still present in this relationship? Am I worth it? If they answer yes to any of those questions, you still have connection. And it is worthwhile to explore how to constantly love each other, date each other, be present with each other. Physical touch is probably one of the most needed things that we remove once we get comfortable. It is so important to turn towards your partner, to lock eyes with them, to create intimacy, to be present, to see them. Because we are a bucket of assumptions. We are a bucket of, I thought you knew that. I've told you. I needed you. But we are not good communicators, especially if you've been with somebody for an extended period of time. So I challenge you to turn towards your partner at the end of this podcast and just hold their hand. Ask them, can we sit towards each other and lock eyes for 1 minute? And I can assure you that if you can look at your partner in their eyes for 1 minute, and it's okay to blink, guys, don't forget to do that. This isn't a staring contest. This is a connection builder. Turn towards them and see if you're comfortable with them after all of these years. And that's your answer. I would love to help anybody restore their relationship through this podcast. But if you turn towards your partner and it is hard to lock eyes with them, it is hard to maintain focus on them solely, then you have your answer, guys. You have to understand, again, SoloInSeattle podcast is about choosing you. So make sure that if you really need to know the answer of choosing yourself in your situation, you do this exercise and let me know how it goes. Keep the connection. Keep the love. If that is what you are desiring. Thank you for listening.